All right. So yesterday we ended off with the question of, you know, is the Kraken something that is going to show up sooner rather than later? Now, there's arguments for and there's arguments against. So let's take a bit of a quick look at the Kraken, what the possibilities are, and what the reality probably is, at least in my opinion. Now, first off, how does all this craziness get started? Well, there's always been talk about, whenever we see some new information or new video of a ship that is long awaited, especially a capital ship, even one that we possibly know is very close to completion, if not already completed, and we're wondering why isn't it in game, Idris, we tend to apply that to other things, right? And we start to say, oh, hey, what if this is done? What if that is done? But I think one of the things that kind of drove this conversation, one of the things that pushes people to go, oh, maybe, is, of course, the Hammerhead. Now, the video you're seeing on screen is from last year's anniversary sale. They do the whole galactic tour thing where they talk about all the different ships and all the different manufacturers, one little mini video for every day. And this was the video showing off the Hammerhead. And this caught a lot of people's attention and got them talking because it showed a ship that pretty much looked like it was ready to fly, at least on the surface. This, of course, got a lot of people excited, very, very excited about this ship because it looked like almost a flight-ready ship. I mean, it really, really did. Now, a year later, or just short of a year later, we now have the ship. It's flyable. It's in game. People are out there enjoying it and abusing each other with it. And, of course, that's a fantastic thing. But with a practice eye, when you look at it now, you kind of see, oh, yeah, the cockpit's all blanked out and, the animations and the way that the engine nacelles move in this video is a little bit odd. It's a little bit off compared to the real ship that's actually flying in the game now. So we can kind of look at it and say, here were a lot of really good ideas, a lot of cool ideas with the turrets and whatnot. A lot of that is a lot of that is functional. But at the same time, you're looking at it and you're realizing, yeah, this is just the model that they made. This is the original concept model, and they kind of staged it, gave it some animations, gave it some effects, and created this video. And it probably did not hurt the sales of the ship one bit. And in fact, probably helped it along. Now, the true story of the Hammerhead was a little bit different. Now, this video here is, of course, from about several months ago. I think this was April or March when we first saw this. And this was, of course, work in progress. This is the Hammerhead as it's coming together. And even though it looks fairly similar to the Hammerhead that we have now, you'll notice that a lot of the polish is missing. A lot of the small details, which you'd think are actually kind of minor, but sometimes can be the most time-consuming to create, are not present in this model. Later on, of course, we were teased with damage states that weren't quite complete, and they were trying to show off the ship as they were working on it, but it wasn't quite ready yet. So as we found out, even though they were working on the ship and they had been working on it prior to the sale, it still took them a year to get it done. Plus or minus. I mean, how long they were working on it beforehand, don't really know. So I'm going to say roughly about a year to get this thing done, though they could have been doing work on this ship for a half a year before they even showed it to us. Fast forward to CitizenCon, and of course, we get this video. And it's pretty damned impressive. And what we're seeing looks very much like an almost finished ship. the guns are working, it's flying around, ships are launching from it. There's even a couple of doors open there. Everything looks really cool. But once again, we're just seeing things on the surface. We do get to see the bridge right there really, really quickly. And there again. But overall, what we're seeing, I would say, is probably not so much a ship that is nearing completion or very close to being completed. What I think we're seeing is the improvement that CIG has made in taking these kind of concept models and bringing them to life for these videos as a way to kind of add that extra oomph to the sail. Now, does this mean that it's a nearly finished ship? No. But that also doesn't mean that it's something that is going to take forever. You see, because a lot of these ships, a lot of these modern Drake ships that you see right now are the products of the nightmarish slog to get a different Drake ship into production, finished, and in players' hands. Some time ago, this is what Drake ships actually looked like. This is what Drake ships looked like in the beginning. That's the Cutlass. There may be some of you who have just gotten into the Star Citizen thing recently. That's what the Cutlass used to look like. That was flyable. That was the original OG Cutlass. And that is an asymmetrical Herald, which sadly we never got our hands on because it is entirely superior. And this was the big daddy of Drake ships back then. The Caterpillar. My, how it has changed. You see, what happened is that CIG really wasn't all that happy with how the Drake ships were turning out or how they were looking, and they were built using kind of the old models, and whatever they were doing to build the ships back then wasn't going to work in the game now, so it was also a good time to kind of take the ships and revise the design. Now, some of us might think that that's a little bit crazy to say, you know, you haven't even released the game yet and you're already kind of doing like a version 2.0 of the designs. But that's normal in game design, that things are going to iterate. Models, looks, appearances, and things are going to change even during like the pre-alpha process when you're bringing things together. But this model of the Caterpillar persisted for quite some time because the Caterpillar was going to be the big ship that CIG was going to do. This was going to be the ship that was going to set the stage for what the other Drake ships were going to look like. Now, this screenshot here is from, I believe, September 2015. I guess I could go back on YouTube and check the date, but this, I already know I'm going to be putting a lot of work into this episode. This is going to be kind of a long one. But this was the original blocking out of the Cutlass, the Caterpillar. This is when they were originally trying to figure out how everything was going to work and how all the pieces were going to go together. They had already sold us on an exterior, but now they had to figure out how to make the interior work, which is kind of one of those things that a few of us have harped about because we've said, you know, that's kind of where a lot of your problems originate from, is you kind of focus on how to get the exterior design language, and then you kind of trip up where you're kind of going, now how do we make the insides work, and is there enough space? And I think that that is one of the more recurring problems that CIG has with their ship designs. Now, they were working on the Caterpillar for a long time, and I think it was patch 2.6 when they finally released the Caterpillar and it became a flyable ship. That was quite a while to finish this ship, and you know, if you were to look at that and just say, well, I guess that sets the precedent, then you might think that, you know, something like the Kraken would take a couple of years, if not longer, to get built. I mean, the Caterpillar was a very long process in getting built. There's one other image of the Caterpillar that I want to show you just to kind of give you a bit of a reference. Now, in between 2015 and the end of 2016, when we got the Caterpillar as a flyable ship, And I believe it was the end of May 2016, they had the Buccaneer concept sale. This was the original concept sale for the Buccaneer. And there is the Caterpillar shown as part of that presumably pirate group. But that's a different Caterpillar. That is the original Jim Martin design of the Caterpillar. So while they were working on the new and upgraded Caterpillar in 2016, they were still using the old Caterpillar model in photographs to pose ships for, you know, concept images and stuff like that. And that kind of gives you a reference as to how far along they were on the new Caterpillar, because they weren't even using it for promo images like that. Now, as we know now, of course, a lot of the ships from the same manufacturer, of course, they use the same assets. There's a lot of things that, while they may look like completely different ships on the outside, there are certain interior parts or components that are very, very similar to the ones that are used on other ships from the same manufacturer. And so you will see a lot of pieces in one Drake ship that are actually on another Drake ship, or some things that are merely reorganized, moved around. One of the ships that was going on at the same time that the Caterpillar was getting done was, of course, the Herald. And the Herald, of course, turned out a lot different than we initially saw it. But it inherited a lot of features from the Caterpillar, and the Caterpillar also inherited some features from the Herald. That was one of the things that CIG was talking about when they were originally putting these two ships forward and making them flyable, is that there was a lot of crossover between these two ships now going forward into the game's development. As they have iterated on the Drake lineup with the Drake Cutlass and, of course, with the Buccaneer, they have further extended that library of components and art assets that they can reuse when they are creating other Drake ships. The Kraken will probably use a lot of things that are already previously built. They may have to make some changes here and there, much like the Hammerhead, where it's used some of the same assets as the Idris, but it required a bit more changing things around to make it a much more distinct ship on the inside. But the baseline assets are there and ready to be worked with, so it shouldn't be all that much of a problem for them. Now, let's think about, realistically, they got a lot of assets already nailed down, so how long is it going to take them? Let's say, I don't know, a year and a half to block out the interior, figure out how everything's going to fit together, how all the different systems are going to work out, build in enough leeway into the interior of the ship to allow possibly for the other options that they've hinted at in the future. Things like that, they have to kind of think ahead and say, okay, what spaces are we going to make that we can change around into something else as needs be in the future? So let's say a year and a half for them to build it out. If, let's say, Chris Roberts came into the office, sat down, slammed his hand on the desk and said, Kraken is the next ship into the production pipeline. Let's get it. A year and a half later, possibly, is when you would see a flyable ship. But the truth is there a reason for them to put it into production? One of the things that we've seen that CIG is kind of aware of, and it's one of the things that has bitten them in the ass in the past, the Hull C is one of those things. The Reclaimer, to a certain degree, and the Herald are also ships that have bit them in the ass. And I don't mean that in the conventional sense, like they immediately did something, dumb or anything like that. A lot of people were excited to see these ships in game, myself included. But they are dead ships. There's no real reason for them to exist in the game right now. The Hull C was stopped because of that, because there was no docking technology, because there was no way to transfer cargo onto the Hull C. So what was the point of the Hull C? And a lot of people, myself included, were watching the Hull C in development and kind of asking that question, like, why are you doing this when you don't have the cargo system built out yet? And that was always one of the things in ship updates where I was kind of sitting there and thinking, like, they keep showing us all these great shots of the interior of the Hull C, but I'm not hearing anything about the cargo system that goes along with it. And that was always kind of one of my suspicions, is that I don't know if this is really I think I even said that in a few ship updates episodes way back the day. It's like, I'm seeing the ship, but I'm not seeing the cargo system, or something along those lines. I'm pretty sure I said that. And so to have the Kraken come into the game, and to have that, docking technology not all wired tight and working. I mean, certainly we have it with space stations to a certain degree, but I think it's going to be a little bit different on ships. So that's one of the things they're going to have to nail down. Cargo transferring from one ship to another, that's something that we haven't seen beyond manually taking someone off, or taking something off of someone's ship and then putting it on your own ship. There really I haven't seen anything like that. A capital ship like that with docking, repair, refueling. Refueling is something we haven't seen. Repair is something we haven't seen yet, though they're supposedly coming over the next year along with salvage priority. And so I have to think that, there's a lot of question marks out there in regards to the systems that are needed to make this ship work in such a way as to justify its presence. Now, certainly if you look at the space map, then you can think, well, there's already a justification there. If you look at the distances that we have to travel, it would be really cool if we could take our ships with us, but that might be another complication in and of itself, where carrying another ship through quantum is maybe something that they haven't fully figured out yet. There may be some tricks to go along with that CIG hasn't figured out. Certainly internally, we can pick up a Drake Dragonfly, we can put it in our ship, and we can fly away in quantum with it, and it doesn't go anywhere. But something out on the flight decks, on the landing pads, that could be part of the landing system that they might not have figured out yet. So that's another thing that they have to do before they can get the ship in here. It would be really crappy to have something as cool as the Kraken get into the game and have most of the best parts of that ship not even functional. That would be kind of a letdown, I think. But once again, I'm not a Kraken owner, so I can't really speak for them and what they would want. I'm sure there's plenty of them that would say, I want this ship now, today. But truth is we're probably looking at the bare minimum, 2 years before we see the Kraken in game. 2 years before it's flyable. That would be my low ball estimate. The earliest possible date is about 2 years from now. Anyways, that is just my speculation. That is just my opinion. You are free to disagree with me, but that's what I see. Anyways, yeah, that's the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching. Shit, this was a long one.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.